It's easy to write a convincing paper. Unfortunately, not many people will sit down and read a convincing paper. Even if it's the subject matter that they'd find interesting, there's just too much risk involved. So you have to take a gamble if you want that paper to be heard or read. You have to translate it into the spoken word. But the spoken word is a bit more complicated. If you don't say things with the right hand gestures, body language, don't have the right sincerity, whatever, it can either just be brushed off, laughed at, or misunderstood, or a combination of the three. I hope this isn't the case for what I have to say about these three things. I've watched our politics at least as much as I've felt comfortable with, which, some might say is little, some might say is too much. I don't know. It's about as much as I got. And I have three things that I think really need to be changed. And I think I may have backed them up with a decent amount of evidence. So if you just listen in, and I'll speak them now. I'll list the most obvious of the three first. Our poorly balanced budget and our debt attached to it. Now there's a variety of ways to fix this, but to move things along, I'll just list two. 1. Reduce the military's portion from 16%, source 2016 budget, to 6%. Now hold on. Making sure to minimize the decrease in salary and total of those serving. Why? We don't need to have these overseas conflicts to keep foreign terrorists away. We could just have military personnel monitoring flights coming from those countries, or just cut off immigration from those places completely. I know it's a hard thing to swallow, but we gotta put our country's laws first for the well-being of people outside of our country. If we can't do that, then what's the point? Yeah, and that's where I was. Less people would die that way, and that decrease of danger, I think, should make cutting the average soldier's salary of $99,000 per year as of 2010 easier to swallow. If you're worried about terrorists that spawn from our nation, it's my personal opinion that if we fix these issues, life in America will just seem like life in America will hopefully seem to just get brighter and brighter as time goes on. Most people watching this country slowly thrive more and more. I don't think they jeopardize that just for the sake of their beliefs, but that's just me. But while I do understand that going back to the 1% it was before 1941 is just not going to happen. I don't think about $220.514 billion is an unreasonable goal, considering it's still more than Russia and China combined. Come on. Take away all the ways those who make over $500,000 per year can deduct their taxes on any form of income. This isn't increasing taxes. This is just taking away all the ways they can deduct it. That part of the tax code that allows our multinational corporations to escape taxes by shifting most of their profits overseas, either get rid of it or add tariffs to the offending countries that make up the difference. Now, after some research, I learned that there are more major corporate tax loopholes. So to save time, I'll quote them directly from, I will list the source in the description. I don't think you want to hear this read out. Bullet point number 1. Limit the ability of tech and other companies to use executive stock options to reduce their taxes by generating phantom costs these companies never incur. Having set bonus depreciation on a path towards expiration at the end of 2019, Congress should take the next step and repeal the rest of accelerated depreciation too. At a minimum, lawmakers should resist calls to expand these tax breaks by allowing for the immediate expensing of capital investments. Bullet point 3. Reinstate a strong corporate alternative minimum tax that does the job it was originally designed to do. Bullet point 4. Increase transparency by requiring country-by-country public disclosure of company financial information, including corporate income and tax payments, through filings to the Securities and Exchange Commission. That one in particular, I agree immensely, and I cannot believe that we have not fixed this yet. Although I can't really preach too much because I didn't even know about this until recently, so... All I have to add to that is that if you expect corporations to, quote, take their business elsewhere, remember, by doing that, they are cutting themselves off of over a quarter of the world's GDP as of 2017. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds pretty stupid to me. I think it's about time, though, to move on to my second suggestion. Keep that in mind. So to begin, I also think we should increase our income tax, increase the income tax of those who make over $1 million per year by 10%. Next, I suggest to implement a mandatory UBI, Universal Basic Income, on those who make an income that places them below the poverty line with their rent in mind. Now, for those of you who don't know much about UBI and don't click on the link below, let me explain how it works. And keep in mind the UBI I suggest is a little different than the one explained in the video. Well, more than a little different, but you'll know. The UBI is essentially a non-taxed income that the government provides, which, unlike Social Security or SNAP, has no strings attached. Now, there are three main problems that people bring up when this is discussed. 1, won't these people stop working? 2, I really hope I did not say 2 when I said 1. That would be bad. Who will take those stressful, dirty jobs? Examples: logger, pest control worker, sewage cleaner. 3, I'm off today. How do we fund this? Well, this was tried out in Manitoba, Canada during the 1970s, and the consequences were an average work hour decrease of 1% for men, 3% for unmarried women, and 3% for married women and 5% for unmarried women. Now, when you hear that, consider this. Which is more appealing to you and those you care about? Spending that time just being lazy, or spending more time with your family and pursuing a better education? If your answer is the same as mine, I don't think I don't see how that could do anything but help this country. So to answer the first question, I don't think the average laziness seen in our poor populace is so bad that our results would be a far cry from theirs. But if you do have, after hearing this, again, keep in mind, these are suggestions, not requirements. Just strong suggestions. Strong. Really strong. Not me strong. Stronger than that. Now, to answer the second question, if these jobs are so bad that a UBI of $1,200 per month per person, plus whatever it takes to make the rent they pay half of their total UBI, is all it takes for most or all to abandon those jobs, then don't you think those employers should make those jobs more appealing by providing better pay or benefits or both? Well, While you think about that, I think I should address the final question regarding the funding of this program. If you shift the money we spent on Social Security in 2016, about $910 billion, and divide that by the number of people below the poverty line, including the homeless, about 41.1 million people, and divide that by 12, just those funds would give those people about $1,845 per person per month for that year. It would be at this point of our talk that I would tell you the total average UBI that would be handed out, but at the time I was writing this part of the script, I've spent 3 hours trying to figure it out, just to realize that the amount of data and the complexity of the math used to properly get that answer is just too much. At least when you consider the amount of time I'm willing to work on this particular part of this script. I'm sorry. So instead, I'll give you the total unused money left over if you just gave them $1,200 a month for that year, which is $318.18 billion. I think that's enough about UBI, though. So next on the docket is, and bear in mind I consider this a package deal with the UBI, get rid of all the tax credits awarded to the poor and increase their income taxes by 10%. If you're wondering what the deal is with these two reform idea sets, I listed what I felt had the best chance of happening first. That's all. Now the next big issue I think our nation needs to correct. Why did I pause there? I don't know. Which also happens to be closely tied to our last issue, which is our nation's poor political education. I arrived at this conclusion because, as I'm sure you'll agree, it's hard enough, and I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I don't know. If there's another way to say it, whatever, I think most of you will agree with me on this. That's what I'm trying to come across. Put out there, whatever. It's hard enough to manage friends, family, finances, and self that adding the arduous task, new word, of keeping up with politics, making sure the source of that info is trustworthy, and mostly free of bias is too much to ask for most of us. To help solve this issue, I've thought of a program that gives any politician, whenever they wish to enact, amend, or abolish, and repeal, if they want to do that, a mandatory spotlight where they must explain why what they propose is necessary, ideally backing up their claim with evidence, making sure they're as clear, concise, and engaged as possible. If you're wondering how you can trust this program, that's where big reveal, sticky pages, increases the tension. Oh my goodness, I might even leave this part in the video. Holy crap! The rest of the media comes in. As sad as it is that the prospect of either political party leaving a positive legacy is so horrible that the opposite party's media will seize any opportunity to tarnish that legacy as long as it's not too obvious to their audience, if they even give a crap. That behavior is something that can be relied on, especially in this administration. We just have to add two things. 1. A segment of the program solely dedicated to responding to influential news programs, example CNN, Fox, The Daily Show. These are influential news programs in my opinion. I don't know if you have others. We can add them to the list, it's fine. Where those in question fess up for their mistakes or defend themselves using facts, not feelings. 2. A segment of the program solely dedicated to public-to-politician discussion. FaceTime would likely be the best way to do this, mostly because it seems harder to script than what takes place when you bring someone in the room. But it's more personal than the disembodied voice you get from a phone call. Make sure selection is obviously random. This is just part of the same deal. I just wanted to add that. If you're worried about people who participate just to waste our politicians' time, don't. As long as they don't show up all the time, humoring them will only help. After all, they're not really wasting our politicians' time, they're wasting our time with them. And I think that fact alone will keep most people from doing that. And the people who still do that, I believe that if we actually get this program running, those people will be quickly ostracized. It'll just be too much of a risk to try to pull that crap. Oh, by the way, I know the word shit exists. I just figured be PC in this whole deal. Whatever. I don't even know if I'm going to leave this in or not. Just saying that. Using a YouTube channel to house this program would be easiest. If you want to use cable as a second house, I don't see the harm. Now, if you want to get people watching as soon as possible, I'd recommend getting into contact with the most influential American YouTubers with a sizable demographic of people over 16, and convincing them to show their audience they support this program. This will go a long way in fixing our nation's political deadlock. Why do you think? Well, if the people are willing to work together, why would they see our politicians bickering at each other over just party differences and just let that slide? Especially if a lot of people are watching our political movement. I just don't see how those politicians, and I know term limits are years long, would stay in power for long. They would have to change. Doing more than this, though, will be up to our politicians. I just don't understand their environment enough to say more. Sorry. Well, that's it for me. I may elaborate further soon if this actually gets significant attention, but until then, I leave you with this. With the way things are, I'm not proud to be an American citizen of this divided country. I know, going off script is crazy. Just before I give up hope, I want to do my part and try to change things. And I hope that you can help me make it so that you don't have to be blind to be proud to be a citizen of this country.